Neglect and abuse, Lindsay said. That's what that looks like. David followed her gaze across the parking lot. A woman in a long gray sweater was unloading cat carriers from the back of an aging minivan. 3 plastic carriers stood on the pavement. A 4th appeared to have been constructed from cardboard, packing tape, and optimism. The woman lifted the cardboard carrier. Its bottom sagged, and something inside gave a low, unhappy howl. I think she's bringing them to the shelter, David said. In a cardboard box. It may be all she has. She just pushed it with her foot. She was keeping it from tipping. You don't know that. Neither do you, another cat cried. Daphne's ears rose. Fred heard it too. Both dogs turned toward the sound, momentarily united by the conviction that whatever was inside the box required their immediate investigation. Lindsay shortened their leashes. They had come to the county shelter for its Saturday microchip clinic. Fred's registration needed to be updated, and Daphne's adoption paperwork contained 2 different chip numbers. It was supposed to be a quick errand. They had begun with 10 pieces of kibble in each token jar. Getting from the car to the clinic entrance had reduced both jars to 4. 7 dogs, a maintenance cart, 2 automatic doors, and a decorative fire hydrant had presented more training opportunities than Lindsay had anticipated encountering in a parking lot. The cat cried again. Daphne pulled. Leave it. Fred pulled harder. No. Both of you sit. Neither dog sat. The woman lifted another carrier from the van. Something moved behind its plastic door and Fred barked. Daphne joined him. Daphne Alora Avril Lamont Katner, Lindsay said sharply. Do not make me come over there. David looked at her. That's her full name. It is now. You gave the dog 5 names. She needs all of them. Why does she have Alora's name? It's an honor. Has Alora been informed? She doesn't need to be. The dogs continued straining toward the carriers. Lindsay stopped pulling back and waited. Fred glanced at her first. Sit. He sat, although every part of him remained pointed toward the cats. Yes. Daphne saw Fred receive a piece of kibble and sat beside him. Yes. 3 each, David said. The woman returned to the van. She pressed both hands against her lower back before reaching for the last carrier. Lindsay watched the cardboard bottom bow again. She needs help. That, David said, is different from needing prosecution. I wasn't going to prosecute her. You opened with neglect and abuse. I was establishing concern. With a verdict, Lindsay handed Daphne's leash to him. Hold them. Where are you going? To help. Try asking before accusing. I know how to speak to people. David looked at her. I do. Lindsay crossed the parking lot. Up close, the woman looked older than Lindsay had first thought. Gray threaded through her dark hair, and deep shadows sat beneath her eyes. Her sweater was covered in cat hair of several colors. Excuse me, Lindsay said. Would you like some help with those? The woman regarded her cautiously. I can manage. That cardboard one looks heavy. It isn't. Something scratched frantically inside. Lindsay looked down at it. It sounds unhappy. They all hate the car. Is the bottom secure? I reinforced it. With tape. It was all I had. The woman tightened her grip on the handle. Lindsay drew a breath. I'm not trying to criticize you. I saw the box bending and I was concerned. People are always concerned after the difficult part is over. What does that mean? It means no one offered me a carrier when I needed one. Now everyone wants to tell me the box is wrong. The answer stopped Lindsay. She bent and placed both hands beneath the cardboard carrier. I can support the bottom. The woman studied her for a moment. Keep it level, she said. Together they lifted it. David approached with the dogs under imperfect control. Where do you want the others? He asked. The woman nodded toward the shelter entrance. Inside. David took the handle of one plastic carrier. Lindsay supported the cardboard one while the woman carried another. The dogs followed. Fred stretched his nose toward the nearest plastic door. A cat hissed. Fred jumped backward and collided with Daphne. Daphne barked. Leave them, Lindsay said. Both dogs pulled forward again. She stopped walking. Sit. Fred sat first. Daphne followed. No token, David asked quietly. Not yet. They continued toward the entrance. The dogs remained seated until Lindsay released them, then walked beside the carriers without barking. At the doors, she rewarded each dog. 2 each, David said. Inside the shelter lobby, a volunteer hurried toward them with a wheeled cart. Ruth, she said to the woman, you made it. Barely. The volunteer looked at the cardboard carrier. What happened to the loaner? The latch broke last night. We'll replace it. She helped Lindsay lower the carrier onto the cart, then checked the label attached to its side. Autumn can go straight back. The veterinarian has an opening. The cat inside gave another unhappy cry. What's wrong with her? Lindsay asked. Ear infection, Ruth said. Possibly something respiratory. The volunteer opened the examination room doors and wheeled Autumn away. 3 carriers remained beside Ruth. A small paw appeared through the door of one of them and vanished again. The volunteer returned with 2 sturdy shelter carriers. We'll transfer the other cats into these before you leave, she told Ruth. Their appointments are still scheduled for this afternoon. I can wait. It may be several hours. I know. The volunteer looked at Lindsay and David. Are you here for the microchip clinic? Yes, Lindsay said. Fred needs his registration updated, and Daphne's paperwork lists 2 different chip numbers. I can check them in now. Before leading the dogs away, Lindsay looked at Ruth. I'm sorry if I sounded suspicious outside. You did. I've been told I sometimes begin conversations in the middle, more like near the verdict. That too. Ruth looked at the dogs. Go take care of them, I'll still be here. The microchip appointments took less than 20 minutes. Fred's chip was working properly. The registration still listed the rescue organization that had placed him with the family. The technician updated the ownership information and confirmed David's phone number. Daphne's 2 chip numbers turned out to be a clerical error. One belonged to her. The other belonged to a Labrador in another county. That explains why she never answers to Moose, David said. No one has called her Moose. Then the system works. Both dogs tolerated the scanner without trying to eat it. Lindsay rewarded each of them afterward. 1 token each, David said. When they returned to the lobby, Ruth was sitting on a bench beside the 3 remaining carriers. Lindsay bought 2 cups of coffee from a vending machine and offered her one. Ruth accepted it. For a while, they waited without speaking. Fred lay across David's shoes. Daphne sat beside Lindsay, watching the examination room doors. Every few minutes, one of the cats shifted inside a carrier, but the dogs no longer barked. You've been doing this long? Lindsay eventually asked. Most of my life. Rescuing cats? Trying to. How many do you have? Ruth stared into her coffee. 9. There were 11. 2 were adopted. And these 4? Medical appointments. Autumn is the only sick one. The others need vaccinations. The explanation made the parking lot scene look different. The mismatched carriers, towels, and taped box were not signs that Ruth regarded the cats as disposable. They were signs that she had used everything she possessed. Are they all yours? Lindsay asked. They're registered through the shelter's community foster program, but they live with me. That sounds like a careful distinction. It matters when the food bill arrives. David nodded. Distributed ownership. Concentrated expenses. Ruth almost smiled. Why so many? Lindsay asked. Ruth looked toward the carriers. My landlord found out the limit is 6 animals and I have 9. I have 2 weeks to place 3 of them. Is Autumn one of the 3? Yes. What happens if you can't find foster homes? The shelter will take them if space opens. And if it doesn't? Ruth did not answer. Daphne rested her chin on Lindsay's knee. Across from them, David's expression had lost its humor. Have the rescue groups been contacted? He asked. All of them, they're full. What about temporary placement? That's what I'm trying to arrange. The examination room doors opened, but the volunteer emerged without Autumn. She gave Ruth an update. The infection appeared limited to 1 ear, and the respiratory test was negative. The veterinarian was cleaning the ear and preparing medication. Ruth's shoulders lowered. Thank you, she said. After the volunteer left, she stared at the closed doors. When I was a child, she said, people didn't talk about fostering. If an animal became inconvenient, it went away. That was the phrase adults used. Went away. Her voice had changed. The defensiveness remained, but something more fragile had appeared beneath it. My father brought home a litter of kittens once. Their mother had been killed on the road. I fed them with a bottle for 3 weeks. Lindsay waited. One morning, I came home from school and they were gone. What happened? He had taken them to a shelter. By the time I found out, they had already been put down. I'm sorry. He told me they didn't know what was happening. He said that made it merciful. Ruth tightened both hands around the coffee cup. I remember thinking that if they didn't understand, then someone who did understand should have protected them. The lobby had grown quiet around them. So now you take as many as you can, Lindsay said. Not all of them. As many as you can. Ruth nodded. And sometimes more than you can. Another nod. I know 9 is too many. I know the cardboard box wasn't good enough. I know what I look like. What do you think you look like? One of those women who collects animals and calls it kindness. Lindsay glanced at the 3 carriers, then at the examination room doors. You look tired. Ruth laughed once, but there was no humor in it. They're wonderful, she said. Every one of them. They just need someplace safe where no one decides they're too much trouble. A cat shifted inside the nearest carrier. Ruth pressed her fingers against its plastic door. Animals are wonderful, she said quietly, as long as someone lets them stay alive long enough to prove it. Lindsay felt the last of her suspicion disappear. In its place came something less satisfying because it required more from her. What do you need? Ruth looked at her. What? Food, carriers, foster homes, all of it. You said 3 need placement. Yes, and Autumn is one of them. Yes. David shifted his weight. Lindsay looked at him. He looked back. No, he said. I haven't said anything. You're about to. We have a guest bathroom. We have 2 dogs who attempted to enter a cat carrier less than an hour ago. They stopped. After you stopped them. That's how training works. David lowered his voice. You met this woman in the parking lot, accused her of mistreating cats, and are now preparing to take one home. I apologized. That does not make the rest less abrupt. Ruth stood. You don't have to take any of them. We could foster one, Lindsay said. Temporarily, through the shelter with proper paperwork and instructions for introducing her to the dogs. You have already selected Autumn, David said. She needs medication. That is not a denial. Daphne placed one paw on Lindsay's knee. David pointed at her. And you're being influenced. She's showing empathy. She's asking for her final token. Daphne pawed Lindsay again. Ruth watched her. Autumn has lived with dogs. Lindsay turned to David. He sighed. There it is. What? The final piece of evidence you were waiting for. I wasn't waiting for anything. You approached a stranger because you were worried about a cardboard box. Now we're leaving with the cat who was inside it. That is not what happened. It is exactly what happened. The shelter's foster coordinator joined them a few minutes later. She confirmed that Autumn was eligible for temporary placement and reviewed the requirements. Autumn would remain indoors and separated from the dogs at first. Introductions would occur through a closed door and then a secure gate. All contact would be supervised. The shelter would provide medication, follow-up care, and a proper carrier. If the family eventually wanted to adopt Autumn, the shelter, not Ruth, would have to approve and complete the adoption. David asked enough questions to suggest that he had accepted the plan before admitting it. The coordinator produced the forms. Ruth signed the transfer from her foster household. Lindsay and David signed as Autumn's temporary foster family. The coordinator approved the placement. Temporarily, David said. Of course, Ruth replied with the solemnity of someone who knew better than to challenge the word. When Autumn's examination was finished, the shelter provided medication and transferred her into a clean plastic carrier. Outside, David secured the carrier in the car while Lindsay kept Fred and Daphne several feet away. Both dogs strained toward it. Sit, she said. Fred sat. Daphne sat beside him. Yes. Lindsay gave each dog the final piece of kibble. David examined the empty jars. No emergency reserve. No. What happens if they misbehave on the way home? We manage without. From inside the carrier came a low growl. Fred's tail began wagging. Daphne looked toward the cat, then deliberately turned her head away. Good choice, Lindsay said. She had no treat to offer, so she scratched behind Daphne's ears instead. The dog leaned into her hand. Fred looked at Lindsay and then away from the carrier. She scratched his ears too. David closed the car door carefully. "What is the opportunity cost of fostering a cat?" he asked. "Peace and quiet? We didn't have those. Then we're getting a bargain." He looked at Fred and Daphne, both trembling with the effort not to investigate the carrier. "You've changed," he said. "I have not. An hour ago you were anti-cat lady. I was concerned. Then you became anti-box. It was falling apart. Now you're pro-cat. I have always been pro-cat. You said cats don't have good behavior. They don't." A small orange paw reached through the carrier door. Daphne took one cautious step closer. "Leave it," Lindsay said. Daphne stopped. Fred stopped beside her. Neither barked. Lindsay looked at the two dogs, then at Autumn watching them through the carrier. The house was about to contain considerably more fur and no measurable reduction in frenzy. She opened the passenger door. "Come on," she said. "Let's go home."